Douglas County's multi-million-dollar offer for school security in the wake of the STEM school shooting is now in doubt, as Dougco schools and county commissioners snipe at each other over how that money should be spent. County's offering $10 million in one-time funding. District wants more control over which projects get money. County's offering $3 million a year for more school resource officers. School district is balking at matching that and is mad that private schools could also get those officers. The county okayed creating a specialized community response team to deal with young people in trouble. The school district has no power to stop that. The politics of how we should best secure our schools are obviously part of this. County commissioners and Dougco are conservative. School board is liberal. It's supposed to get worked out over summer break, so stay tuned. Week from tonight, we are going to know who will lead Denver for the next 4 years. Now, bear in mind, Denver hasn't voted an incumbent mayor out of office since 1983. You had to think that Jamie Giellis had the momentum going into the runoff with Mayor Michael Hancock, but since then, she has struggled to explain away her own words, and she's reversed a key position on the urban camping ban. Giellis is trying to regain her footing with her first television ad. Politics guy Marshall Zellinger puts it to the truth test.
We are uniting Denver.
Jamie Giellis is out with her first political ad, highlighting the support she has from former mayoral challengers Penfield Tate and Lisa Calderon.
As mayor, I'll take action to rein in out-of-control growth and housing costs.
This is vague, and a mayor can't do either of those alone. The 13-member city council could impact growth because it has the power over zoning, the height, number of stories, size of buildings, the density, location, and use. As for housing costs, a mayor can't just enforce a policy that suddenly makes your $1,800 a month one-bedroom cheaper, but the mayor, with the help of council, can address affordable housing through programs that help low-income families get assistance with their rent. Gillis's ad continues with more of what she says she'll do as mayor.
Pass ethics reforms to stop sexual harassment at City Hall.
From a policy standpoint, this is yes and no. Pass ethics reforms? No, city councils do the passing. However, as mayor, Giellis would have the power of the executive order. Giellis could issue an order creating policies and procedures for how to handle employees accused of sexual harassment, kind of like an addition to your employee handbook. Now, while the city can address how to handle sexual harassment complaints as employers, sexual harassment itself is already a crime.
And to finally start solving our homelessness crisis.
This gets a shrug. It's a claim that comes without specifics. Even Mayor John Hickenlooper had a 10-year plan to end homelessness, and we're still seeking solutions.
Big developers had their mayor. I'll be a mayor for Denver's future.
This just needs context, because a closer look at both candidates' campaign accounts shows contributions from developers. The mayor just happens to have more.
This has come up a lot, so on that note, I'd love to give you a full accounting of how much each candidate has from developers, but I can't give you an exact number, and I want to be honest why. When someone contributes to a campaign, they basically self-report their profession and their employer, so it's not uniform. I may do it differently than someone else. I don't contribute to campaigns, by the way. People may do it differently, and so it's a messy database. I can't just click on developer and say, hey, Hancock has this much and Giellis has this much. We're working through it so we can give an exact number shortly.
Fair to say, based on all numbers that we have, they're both supported by developers, just different developers and in different amounts. Hancock's got a whole lot more developer money than she does.
Correct. And part of that, Hancock has been raising money for 4 years since he was reelected.
Sure.
So that also adds to that difference.
Makes sense. Marshall, thank you. So we've been getting some feedback on Jamie Gillis' change of position on the urban camping ban, the thing I mentioned. Judy Cohen wrote into me comparing Gillis' stance on the camping ban, which was upheld 4-1 by Denver voters this month. Judy compared that to Democrats at the state capitol, who passed oil and gas regulations right after voters rejected increased drilling setbacks at the ballot last year. Judy wrote in, why should I bother to vote on ballot issues if elected officials can override the majority? Well, Judy, those two examples are a bit different. Let me try to explain. Governor Polis and Democrats won with promises to regulate oil and gas. They just didn't like the specific regulations which were rejected by voters. So when they did this, they kept their campaign promise. Jamie Gillis pledged to end the urban camping ban and then reversed herself after voters overwhelmingly wanted to keep it. If Gillis is elected mayor, I'm not sure which campaign promise we should hold her to. Her old pledge to end the camping ban or her new pledge to keep it. So now, if you think it's tough being a candidate these days, try being a voter, as evidenced by the Arapahoe County ballot drop box that was stuffed with ballots for Denver's election. A next viewer named Amanda admitted to us she was about to make the very same mistake at the drop box at Parker in Florida. I mean, it's close to Denver. It's in the neighborhood. She left a handwritten note warning voters they're not in Denver County. Now, Arapahoe County says it called Denver and was like, hey, come get your ballots. If you haven't mailed your ballot, don't mail it at this point. Drop it at a drop box, one in Denver, or vote at one of the 7 in-person voting centers. Hours and locations are also on the next Facebook page. Colorado's Democratic Secretary of State, Jena Griswold, has managed to avoid our questions until now about why Planned Parenthood's political director got to edit her official statement, the one calling for a boycott of Alabama over its abortion ban. Planned Parenthood instructed our Secretary of State to use terms that polled better for that organization and told her to take out a line which indicated that the Alabama boycott was a lot more about symbolism than practical impact. Today, we finally got to ask Griswold if it was the right decision to make edits on a state-issued news release based on Planned Parenthood's polling.
I believe that it makes sense to reach out to community organizations and community leaders when making decisions. At the end of the day, I decide what's in a press release or what's not in a press release. I reached out to Planned Parenthood. They didn't reach out to me. I reached out to them because they're a leading expert on women's health care. We did not ask for polling information. I had conversations with the president of Rocky Mountain Planned Parenthood and stand by my decision. I stand by the press release.
We also asked Secretary of State Griswold if she could be fair should someone come into her office and file a complaint against Planned Parenthood's lobbyists. Griswold told us that Coloradans should expect impartiality from her. So how about last night's boom shakalaka, huh? The thunder and the hail and the lightning, right when we were all trying to sleep off whatever we did over the long weekend? Woke up this morning and it was clear that trees and plants had been denuded, which is both a fun word to say and completely accurate since they were stripped of their leaves. Colorado does not see a ton of these damaging storms come at us under the cover of darkness. Meteorologist Corey Reppenhagen is along to make us smarter about these storms.
Yeah, waking up to overnight hail damage here on the Front Range is pretty unusual because we rely so much on our daytime heating. Once the sun goes down, our air usually stabilizes, but that didn't happen last night. Not because of one reason, but several factors contributed to our overnight hailstorm.
The main ingredient was a very unusually cold upper-level storm system for this time of year. With that very cold air up above us, our 50-degree air at the surface was able to rise with no problem. Ingredient number 2 was a very fast-moving jet stream that was positioned right over eastern Colorado. As that fast air moved high above our heads, it pulled air up from the surface, something we call diffluence. Ingredient number 3 was southeasterly flow. Air at the surface moving in from the southeast kept recharging our local atmosphere with ample moisture, the fuel for hailstorms. Ingredient number 4 was a cold front that was draped over our region last night, providing additional lift for storms to get started. The 5th ingredient, outflow boundaries. Air getting pushed out of the thunderstorms on the eastern plains last night moved west to the Rocky Mountains. These boundaries often help trigger late-night storms and may have even clashed with the cold front when they got to the metro. I'm meteorologist Corey Reppenhagen for Next.
It was certainly a noisy night out there. Hopefully this evening will be a little quieter. Up in the mountains, they are looking at snow. Snow still as we wind down the month of May. I-70, it's going to be a little tricky if you are heading up there, and scattered rain showers going in northern Colorado. This is right there near Fort Collins. Storm system now sitting right over northeastern Colorado as it's lifting up to the north and to the east. That counterclockwise rotation still ushering in scattered showers. Thunderstorms haven't seen much turn severe. If we do, it'll be across the eastern plains. A good-sized soaker moving just in toward the Burlington area. Not a ton of rain, but still possible throughout the rest of this evening, overnight here in the Denver area, and then there is that snow up in the mountains. We still have advisories, warnings in place for several more inches before about midnight. Tonight here in town, once the showers move out, we'll be left with a cool night and possibly a little fog to kick off our Wednesday morning, so keep that in mind as we go throughout the rest of the evening into tomorrow. This is 8 a.m. There's that fog sitting around the city. The afternoon rolls around, and so do the thunderstorms. Once again, tomorrow's thunderstorms should not be severe, but still we can't rule out seeing once again a little more hail. Daytime highs stay cool tomorrow at 55 with the scattered showers, 60s in southeastern Colorado, and 40s and 50s up in the mountains. 65 on Thursday, 70s on Friday, a drier day, and now looking ahead toward the weekend, upper 70s, low 80s, a nice break from the wild weather. What'd you call it, Kyle? Boom shakalaka?
That is precisely.
That was last night?
That's precisely
Okay.
what I called it. It's not a meteorological term.
Oh, it's not?
No. No, it's more of it's a slang term, I think.
Slang.
All right. Thank you, Danielle. So it's basically still winter in the high country. Danielle will tell you that. It was snowing in Vail today. Same day, the Governor Polis signed a bill requiring the drivers have proper traction on their vehicles all winter, regardless of conditions. So no more checking the forecast and trying to figure out if your bald tires can make it or whether you should have chains. New traction law will be enforced September through May. Don't obey traction laws and you might accidentally cross a line. We found what appears to be an intentional line crossing captured by a next viewer named Betsy in Louisville. I like this. I mean, it's kind of shaped like a space. Yes, it's covered in rocks and it's clearly not a space where you should park, but you know what? Listen. If you buy a vehicle like that, you should get to use it once in a while. Email pictures of line crossing you see to next@9news.com or get our attention with the hashtag #HeyNext.
I mean, he was a little kid at heart, and he loved making people laugh.
Memories are all they have left, but they can share them without losing a thing.
Just seeing so many people come here, it makes you feel surrounded by him a little bit more.
For this family, every day is Memorial Day. And we'll meet a CU Boulder scientist preparing to live on a ship encased in ice, or as he calls it, research. That's next.
Fort Logan National Cemetery is a humbling place to visit. Walk the rows of perfectly placed headstones on Memorial Day weekend and you will find many stories worth sharing. Our Noel Brennan and photojournalist Ann Herbst spent the day at a fallen soldier's headstone and returned with this story.
It's a beautiful Colorado day. I'm glad the sun's shining.
If you waited for the sun to shorten shadows and spent the whole day here,
yeah, it's a beautiful day.
You'd know him by the end without ever having to meet.
I feel like I knew Jake.
On Memorial Day at Fort Logan National Cemetery, stories from family and friends.
Jake is the smiling soldier.
Keep a soldier alive.
Jake was my cousin.
Jake Wykstra.
Visiting our nephew Jake.
I met him at church.
Jake's my nephew. Known him since he was a little guy.
My son looked up to all the time.
Jake, to me, was one of my best friends.
They spent the morning or the afternoon, and they even traveled.
All the way from Iowa.
Some even cracked cans.
Hopefully the staff won't mind.
And toasted the GI who grew out of his toys.
This little action figure here.
But never grew up.
Goofy, yep. Absolutely.
And goofy is a good word.
Trying to make people laugh.
Goofy's a great word.
Smile. Goofy smile.
He was super goofy.
We were just sitting in the chow hall, and out of nowhere, he just goes, "You guys want to see how much pineapple I can fit in my mouth?"
The strangest person I've ever met.
They remember laughter.
No, he's hilarious.
And light.
The kind of dude that you just wanted to be around because he lit up every single room with his stories and his smile, and he just made you laugh.
He was a light, and it's hard to lose a light.
May 28th, 2014.
I was in the actual crash that took his life. Pilots clipped something, and unfortunately Jake was the only one that was killed, but everybody else was pretty seriously injured.
It's important that we don't forget, that we don't take for granted what they've given.
This day is memorable.
He painted a sunset for us.
But the next is more meaningful to a father.
His dad is coming tomorrow.
He visits on the day he lost his boy, and it's too hard to speak. Words he'd like to share have been spoken.
Always smiling, always hugging, always laughing.
And by now, you probably know Jake.
He was the type of soldier that you wanted.
He was just an all-American kid.
Jake was as good as it
Always
gets.
made people laugh and
Put a
smile.
smile on your
He was
face.
Still the light in everyone's life.
Loved life. He really did.
For next, I'm Noel Brennan.
Jake Wykstra was born in Louisville. He's raised in Thornton, where there's a street and a Little League baseball field named after him.
Home will be a ship frozen stuck in Arctic ice a long way from his other home in Colorado.
That's where I'll live. That's where other people will be every day.
And Coloradans take on flooding just as you would expect them to. That's next.
It's a really unflattering angle, that one there. A century or two ago, if you were exploring the Arctic and your ship got stuck in the ice, not good. A researcher from CU Boulder is going to do that on purpose. Park the ship, let the ice lock it in, and then just drift along for the next year. Matt Schuppe went on his first Arctic expedition more than 20 years ago. Today we caught up with him in Boulder, going over the equipment with his team.
To me, the Arctic is like a frontier. It's the unknown, and I have always been really fascinated by that. I've been working on the Mosaic design and concept for about 10 years. Mosaic stands for the Multidisciplinary Drifting Observatory for the Study of Arctic Climate. We'll have 17 nations involved in Mosaic right now, but all kind of collaborating on the same basic mission, to go out there into the sea ice, to understand the sea ice, why it's changing, and the implications of that change on the rest of the system.
Well, these two wires should be connected.
So this is a sonic anemometer, measures three-dimensional winds very rapidly.
Take number 3 apart.
We're working to integrate this instrument and a number of other instruments together so that they can all talk to each other. So we'll have a ship as our main base of operations. That's where I'll live, that's where other people will be every day. And so out there near our ship, we're gonna install a bunch of things on the sea ice, including our station. We have some radiometers. These are measuring sunlight. We've got a sonic anemometer. This is the cage thing on top. Infrared thermometer, a device that's looking at water vapor concentrations very rapidly. We're funded, at least the U.S. parts, by U.S. tax dollars to collect data that's available for anybody. And one of the really interesting things about Mosaic is that we're bringing together an interdisciplinary team. So that is people that look at things like the atmosphere, like I do, the sea ice, the ocean, the ecosystem, biogeochemical processes, all together in the same place to look at how all those systems are interacting together. And that's something that's pretty unique about Mosaic, is to really have that cross-cutting kind of scientific exploration.
This year-long expedition will cost $150 million. Schuppe says the U.S. government and the National Science Foundation are kicking in about $40 million of that. Did you see northeastern Colorado really got flooded out this weekend over a couple of days? Today, they are up you-know-what creek, but they have a paddle. That and your feedback next. The most Colorado thing we've seen today is a Coloradan paddling through a tough situation near Holyoke out east. They got a lot of flooding out there, hail and rain. Laura Girk shared this video of what she called puddle kayaking. I like this. Yeah, it's tough to see, but I'm sure there's a smile on that person's face. Share the most Colorado thing you've seen the same way that Laura did. Use the hashtag HeyNext on Twitter, or you can always email it to next@9news.com. We finished with your feedback, and Dave says, I haven't seen any stories critical of Mayor Hancock on your show. Are you a bit biased, or have I just missed those pieces? Dave, no worries, you just missed them. The past few years, we've been critical of the mayor and the collapse of his affordable housing program, his inappropriate conduct while in office, and his failure to take full responsibility for it. There was also some dust up over his sanctuary city policies. There was the flip-flop on supervised injection sites. There were a couple. See you next time.